My name is Sarah Hale. I'm 31. Last Wednesday, I sat in a law office in Chicago and watched my family divide my father's estate, while I was handed an old metal flash drive with no label. My brother smirked. My aunt rolled her eyes. The attorney didn't even try to hide his sympathy. Everyone in that room had already spent their inheritance in their heads. And me? I was sitting there holding a USB like it was a joke I didn't understand. But here's what none of them knew. Sometimes the most valuable inheritance looks like a mistake, and everything changes the moment you decide to check. Before I tell you what happened next, just hold that feeling for a second. Now let me take you back 2 days. Monday, 7:02 a.m. I'm standing behind the counter at a small bakery in a Chicago suburb, Maple and Grain. Flour on my hands, coffee going cold, first customers walking in. My phone rings. Mom. She doesn't call in the morning. Ever. Sarah. Your father passed away. Pause. The will reading is tomorrow. 2 o'clock. Don't be late. She hangs up, just like that. I stand there holding the phone and everything inside me goes quiet. My father, Thomas Hale, built a logistics company from nothing. 1 warehouse, then 2, then a network across the state. But to me, he was the man who taught me how to fix broken bikes in the garage and said, if something's broken, don't throw it away. Figure out how it works. The next day, law office. Chicago. My brother Mark is already there. Expensive suit, watch worth more than my car. His wife scrolling her phone. My Aunt Laura whispering to the attorney. When I walk in, Mark looks at me. You actually came? I don't answer. The reading begins. The house, to Mark. The main business, to Mark. Investments, split between Mark and my aunt. No applause, but it feels like there should be. Then the attorney pauses. Sarah Hale. Every head turns. He slides a small envelope toward me. Inside, a flash drive and a single note. Watch it yourself. Dad. Then Mark laughs. Seriously? A USB? Maybe it's bakery recipes. A few people chuckle. I don't say a word. I just stand up and walk out. I'm sitting in my car in the parking lot. The flash drive is in my hand. Small, cold, ordinary. And suddenly I realize something. This is the last choice my father left me. Ignore it or check. I drive home. My apartment. 400 square feet above a car wash. Old laptop. Slow internet. I plug in the drive. 1 file. A video. The screen flickers. Then my father appears, sitting in that same garage. Hi, Sarah. I stop breathing. If you're watching this, it means you chose to look. He smiles. Good. He leans closer to the camera. Everything they got is what they could see. Money, assets, status. But you always look deeper. I don't move. In 2010, I started a second company. Pause. One nobody knows about. My chest tightens. It's not in my name. It's held in a trust. And you are the sole beneficiary. I can't even process it. But there's a condition. If you don't open this file within 72 hours after the will reading, everything goes to charity. He looks straight into the camera. I needed to know it would go to someone who asks questions. Pause. Not someone who just waits. The video ends. I close the laptop, sit in the dark, and for the first time since the call, I cry. The next morning, I meet a man named Richard Blake, my father's trustee. He confirms everything, the company, the assets, the contracts. Estimated value, $22 million. Why me? I ask. He answers, because you were the only one who showed up when he didn't have anything to give you. 3 days later, my family finds out, and everything explodes. Mark calls it unfair. My aunt threatens a lawsuit. My mother says, you're not ready for this. But for the first time in my life, I don't defend myself. I just say, it was his decision. Mark files a lawsuit. He loses. Everything is airtight. 6 months pass. Mark mismanages half of what he inherited. My aunt burns through her share on bad investments. And me? I don't become some genius CEO overnight. I learn. I listen to the people my father trusted. I ask questions. I show up. Warehouses, meetings, early mornings. I learn names. I learn systems. I learn responsibility. And slowly, the company grows. Not fast, not flashy, but right. 1 year later, we open a new logistics center in a town that didn't have jobs before. At the opening, one of my father's longtime employees walks up to me. He says, you run this like he did. And that's when it hits me. My father didn't leave me money. He left me a test and a chance. So if you ever find yourself in a room where people have already decided you're not enough, remember this, the most important doors don't look like doors. Sometimes it's just a flash drive. Sometimes it's a phone number. Sometimes it's a choice nobody else takes seriously. And now I'm curious. If someone handed you something that looked completely worthless, would you check? Or would you throw it away? Most people think the story ends there. It doesn't. Because getting the inheritance, that's the easy part. Keeping it, becoming the kind of person who deserves it, that's where everything actually begins. 2 weeks after the lawsuit falls apart, I get my first real test. Not from my family, from inside the company. Monday, 8:15 a.m. I'm sitting in a glass conference room at Hale Logistics headquarters. 12 people around the table. Department heads, operations, finance, legal. People who've been here longer than I've been an adult, and they're all looking at me, not impressed, not convinced, evaluating. A man named Greg Thompson, head of operations, leans forward. We've got a problem. He slides a file across the table. Contract with Northline Distribution, one of our biggest clients. They're pulling out. The room tightens. Why? I ask. He doesn't hesitate. They don't think you can run this company. No sugarcoating, no diplomacy, just truth. Silence. Then someone else adds, they've been approached by a competitor. Who? I ask. Greg looks at me. Your brother. That lands. Hard. Mark didn't just lose, he pivoted. And now he was coming after the only thing that mattered. I sit back in my chair, think. Not emotionally, practically. Just like my dad taught me. When's the meeting? I ask. Tomorrow. Noon. Set it. The next day, I walk into a high-rise office downtown. Glass walls, steel everything. Northline's executives are already seated. 3 of them. All older, all skeptical. One of them speaks first. Ms. Hale will be direct. We're reconsidering our contract. I nod. I understand. Your brother presented a more stable alternative. Of course he did, I could argue, defend, explain. But instead, I remember something my father used to say. If you have to convince someone you're capable, you're already lose. So I do something different. Then don't stay, I say, the room shifts. They didn't expect that. If you think another company can serve you better, you should go. Now they're listening. But before you decide, answer one question. They exchange looks. Go ahead. When something breaks at 3 a.m., a shipment fails, a route collapses, who do you want answering the phone? Pause. Someone who inherited confidence or someone who built it? Silence. Real silence. Then I slide a folder across the table. These are our last 12 months of performance metrics. On-time delivery, issue resolution. Client retention. They open it, start reading. Numbers don't care about opinions. I stand. You don't need to decide today. But if you stay, you're staying because of what we do, not because of who I am. I turn to leave. I stop, sit down. 20 minutes later, they renew the contract. Not because they trust me, not yet, but because they trust the system my father built and the fact that I didn't try to fake being him. That night, I sit in my apartment. Same table, same quiet, and I realize something. Confidence isn't loud, it doesn't argue, it doesn't beg to be believed, it just shows up. Again, and again, and again. A week later, Mark calls. I almost don't answer, but I do. You got lucky, he says. His voice is tight, controlled. That contract, that was mine. I lean back in my chair. Then why don't you have it? Silence. This isn't over, Sarah, I know, and I mean it, because this was never about one contract or one company. It's about something much bigger. It's about what happens when the person everyone underestimated stops asking for permission to be taken seriously. 3 months later, I find another file. Hidden deep in the company archives. Old. Encrypted. Marked only with one word, Phase 2. And that's when I realize, my father didn't just leave me a company, he left me a plan, and I'm only at the beginning. So now I'll ask you again, if you found something hidden, something everyone else overlooked, would you stop at the surface? Or would you keep digging?